Okay, so I think you all can still see me. And with any luck, you can hear me. We've talked about this in the previous weeks, but here's what's happening. Buyers are out here in love with AI, right? They are researching all kinds of things. They are wanting to get information. And what they're finding is that some of the information doesn't make sense, or there's conflicting information, which you can imagine if you're a buyer, it's kind of making you crazy. And the thing about our buyers is that in B2B is that typically they're making pretty significant purchases. If they screw the purchase up, the chances of them, kind of either at least losing their reputation or getting something in their performance review about a failed project, it's not going to work for them. And that is like primal fear, right? It's their livelihood. So what do they do when that happens? They they're not going to bet their livelihood. They're not going to bet their job on AI, which by the way, like has hallucinations all the time. It's just not worth it. So what do they look for? They want sales professionals. They want the real human sales professionals, not in the early stage, right? Because they're doing their research online and potentially getting referrals. But as they get further and they're getting more information and it's getting more overwhelming, buyers are out here looking for the salesperson that's going to help them make sense of it all and get them to the point where they can make a decision that they are confident about. So that's my little reminder. And really, that is the main premise for human to human selling. Okay, quick recap. This is where we are today. We are going to be talking about critical thinking. This one is so important, and I'm excited to talk to you about it today. We've done heart set, we've done mindset, and we're kicking through these skill sets. There's just one left, more on the schedule later. In the meantime, let me ask you a question. So, have you ever had a situation where you did everything right? Like you followed your sales process the way you needed to, you documented things, you had beautiful agendas, you followed up all of the things, right? Everything to the letter that you needed to do that increases your chances to win. And you're confident, right? Yet you lose the deal anyway. It derailed. Somehow something happened and it derailed, and you were totally blindsided. Now, if your answer is no, I don't believe you because I know you wouldn't even be here. You wouldn't be listening to this if you hadn't had this issue before. It happens, right? We're selling to humans. That's the first thing. And second of all, well, more on that in a moment. Critical thinking is your first line of defense. The way that you prevent something like that happening to you, and if it happens to you repeatedly, you really need to be listening up. But we all have blind spots. So when you're sitting in the middle of something, you're not looking at it clearly. What's happening is, and I've talked about this and other things, emotions are taking hold. You are in that opportunity and you are basically not seeing straight, right? When you're sitting in the middle of it, it's really hard to find those blind spots. And this is one of my um, favorite little cartoons. It's one of my favorite sayings, rather. You can't read the jar. You can't read the label, rather, when you are in the jar. So you're in the jar, you're in the fire. And when that's happening, you can't see as if an outsider. And that puts you in a position where you are vulnerable and you're prone to making a mistake or inadvertently derailing your opportunity. Critical thinking, like I said, first line of defense, and it helps. I'm going to give you a little definition of it. Now, here's the funny thing about critical thinking. It is one of the most important skills that we're talking about in the world of work, not just sales. And you'll find that like World Economic Forum is talking about that, Harvard Business Review, et cetera. It's that important, right? But the thing is, if you try to find a solid, like really good definition of it, it's really hard. You will find multiple things. But what I've done is I distilled it to what the definition is based on who we are as B2B sales professionals and how we need to be using critical thinking in our context right now. And there it is. There are some keywords in here. Deliberate, right? That's the first thing that you have to know. Critical thinking is not your default setting, okay? Well, I shouldn't say that. Some people it is, and that has taken practice to get them there. Even the people that are the best sales professionals, they have to push themselves to do critical thinking and apply it at different stages within the sales process. So deliberate, first thing, right? You got to be real about it. Second, disciplined. There is a discipline to it, more on that in a moment, but you can't just say, I'm going to go critical thinking. You have to have a thing to do that is making that critical thinking happen, right? There has to be an action. And it is questioning. This goes back to questioning. Remember when I said I think it was mindset, that curiosity was the one that was going to stick with you throughout all of the human to human sales acumen. That's why it's part of the foundation and the mindset. Okay. Difference is in critical thinking, you have curiosity, but you have curiosity with a mission. You're out to find the blind spots, for example. In curiosity in general, part of its mindset, it's just wanting to learn and be a sponge. And then in discovery, that's what it is. You're trying to gather information that's going to help you advance the deal. Here, curiosity has particular value because it is going to help you get to all the holes that you're not seeing, right? But there's a way that you need to do that. Now, once you see everything, then you can make the best judgment call. And really, the buyers today are thinking that they want you to help make a judgment call. As I said before, they're seeking out sales professionals. They're like tired of AI. They don't want to trust it. And so they want a trusted human. They don't want you just for fun, right? They want you to help them make the right call. They want to be confident about their decision, their work, their job's on the line. So there's 3 steps that you take. Now, this is my own definition. This is what I came up with and how I advise sales professionals to like get in the habit of critical thinking. Like everything else that we talk about here, it is really important that you make these things a habit, right? That's why I always say at the end of these lives that, you know what, you should put this to play right away. Give me 1 second. Oh, okay. Yay. Thanks. Thanks, MD. And thanks, Mandy. Somehow the scroll isn't happening. All right, back to what I was saying. So this is deliberate discipline. So that is the thing that we're doing. We are focusing on critical thinking and how we're going to apply it. These are the steps that I want you to take. This is the strategy. I call it the S3 strategy because obviously I love it when we do alliteration. First step, self-distance, right? And then you're going to swap lenses and then you do a stress test. So I'm going to go into each of those in a moment, but this is what your strategy is. So when you are going back into the field and you're looking at your deals, you can right away start working through this process that we're going to talk through. Here we go. First step, self-distance. All this really means is step up, out, and away, right? Just like pull yourself out of that mire of the day-to-day of that opportunity and that sales motion. What I like to tell sales professionals is like a good rule of thumb. A good way to do this is to pretend that you are your sales leader, right? Pretend that you are your sales leader and you are looking at you in this opportunity life cycle that you are going through, okay? What does that look like? Well, what does it look like? Swapping lenses. First, you got to remove yourself from the situation, and then you have to change your perspective. So first, you're changing like your position, you're orienting yourself as an outsider. And then you are changing how you see because you cannot continue to see with the rose-colored glasses. And look, this happens to all of us. Like this is not something that just one person has. Now, there's obviously people that are more happy ears than others, but your brain is essentially got shortcuts to help you hear what you want to hear. It's called confirmation bias. And so you are kind of seeing the world through the lens of what you believe. And oftentimes we take signals from buyers and we take them for what they're worth anyway. That's what we're talking about here today. Rose-colored glasses, take them off. Get a clear lens going, right? And the one I just told you about was be looking at yourself as the lens of the sales leader. That's the lens that I said. Now you could also step back, and you should also step back and look at yourself through the lens of the buyer, right? When you're in it, when you're looking at it, it's all about perception for that buyer. But for you, it's about perspective in this exercise. You want to get the perspective of somebody who can see the whole picture. And you've pulled yourself out of it, right? You've got your sales leader hat on. You're looking at the situation. We'll go through an example. And then chime in the comments if you have any questions. It'll be a lag, but I will answer it. Okay. See, I'm always going to get ahead of myself, darn it. Here you go. The first two steps in S3, they are there to orient you around the problem, right? It shifts where you're standing, it pulls you out, and it shifts how you're seeing. It gives you a different viewpoint because of the change of lens. Now, like I said, we'll have an example, but these are things that you have to make yourself do. And I understand, there's some cynicism and it's like, this is hokey. Well, the thing is, hokey will save your ass when it comes to deals that are dragging and making sure that you don't get bitten at the end of the sales cycle. Okay, so to use this tool to your advantage, even if it feels a little awkward and odd, practice it, do it, use it. You're going to see how well it works for you. The thing about the first two steps is they exist to orient you around the situation, but also force you to be objective. That's the moral of it. These two steps are designed to get you to a point where you are looking at something objectively so that you are going to be able to, well, do the next step. So you're going to actually be able to use what you're seeing and from where you're standing to help you. Okay. It's there to help you with the gotchas. That's our next step. Stress test. Okay. Ooh, sorry about that. Stress test is just what it sounds like. You're going to stress test your assumptions. That's the first one, right? What are you assuming is going to happen next that isn't going to happen? Right. What is your buyer assuming, by the way? That's another one. We're not going to dig into that one today, but that's one of the things that you need to stress test. You're actively going to poke holes in your assumptions. You're going to try to find the gaps and look for those blind spots that you wouldn't have otherwise seen. This to me involves a lot of asking why and asking what's actually true. Is this true? What am I missing? Those types of things are what you're asking to uncover those gaps. And this is basically the heart of critical thinking. This is what you're doing. The other two are kind of orienting yourself, right? Getting you in the right place to do it. Back to kind of mindset. This is the thing that you're going to do. You're going to stress test your assumptions. That's the biggest action that you have to take here. And that's the reason that that pays off is because it's going to give you those gaps so you can close them before it's too late. And sometimes you'll find it'll give you some new different insight that you didn't have before, which that's a little magical. But you want to make sure that you are doing this step, asking the whys. Why is this true? Is this true? Etc. All right, so what could this look like in your sales motion? Okay, so I'm going to go through an example for this, right? What it could look like for a average sales professional, and then a human-to-human sales acumen, sharp human-to-human sales acumen sales professional, going through critical thinking, applying critical thinking to their situation. So let me set up the situation first. First, there's a buyer that sends an email to you, like the sales professional, right? Sales professional one. The email simply says, hey, the stakeholder meeting that actually just says stakeholder meeting went really well. Thanks for the case studies that you sent over. They were super helpful. Okay. And you reply right away to that customer and just like, hey, great, thanks. Thanks for letting me know. And you already have a meeting set up with them. So you're going to see them on Tuesday. And that's it. That's the reply that you've got. Then Tuesday rolls around and you get into the meeting. And of course, you're going to acknowledge the fact that they acknowledged you. So you kind of say, hey, again, I'm so happy that those case studies helped and that meeting, of the stakeholders went really well. Buyer will say something like, yeah, thanks again, right? This is typically how that conversation goes. You will bring it up, okay? Then once you've done that, you kind of set the stage, right? Like positive, you would think. But then what you do is you say, great, so now let's take a look at the next steps. By the way, this is something that we are very trained to do is keep the deal moving, continue to advance the opportunity. And so clearly we want to make sure we understand the next steps. And that's the natural thing that in this scenario, the sales professional chooses to do. Okay. So chime in the chat if you want to tell me, and I won't be able to see it right away, but what this sales professional is doing wrong, for example. What do you think they're missing here? I'm going to move on. We're going to do the next step, the next part of the example. This is the next seller. This is the second seller. This is our human-to-human sales acumen sales professional. right? They get the same email, same thing, same situation, and same response, really, right? Thanks for letting me know. See you on Tuesday. Awesome. Then what happens right when the sales professional hangs up? Awesome. Yes. Meeting went well. I might even get this closed this quarter, right? That's the rose colored glasses coming. It's just, this is what you're thinking, right? This is the thought process that's going through this particular salesperson's mind when they've seen that email. This is how they're assessing. This is what their instinct is. Then, if they, because they are a human-to-human sales acumen trained sales professional, they're going to do the first S. They're going to self-distance. Wait, let me take a step back, right? Because they're catching themselves getting really happy, right? Those happy ears are there. Let's take a step back, right? That's self-distancing. And then swap the lens. Do the trick that I told you. What's my sales leader going to say when I update him? Well, I'm pretty sure any sales leader worth their salt is going to be like, what does it went well even really mean? Are you telling me that now all those stakeholders are green? They're bought in? This is very likely some variation of these questions is what that sales leader would ask. Now, you wouldn't have asked that. You wouldn't have thought about that unless you were making the deliberate decision to think about it, right? Or it may have come, a little bit later. But you want to have that intuition and that insight rather right away. Okay, so then what happens? Here you think to yourself, okay, you know what? I got a stress test. I need to figure out exactly what that buyer means by well. Like, what does that mean? And where is each stakeholder? Like, where do they stand? That's a lot. I've got a lot of digging to do. I don't really know a lot after that email. It didn't really give me anything. Cool. So I need to ask things like, how well did my buyer read the room, right? That's not an ask one, but observe. How well did they do in that room? Ask questions like, what was everyone's take? Each one. Walk me through what the IT person had to say, right? Walk me through what that delivery organization leader had to say, right? Because it went well, right, with the stakeholders. So again, we don't know what that means. We don't know what that means at the level of the whole meeting went well, or even the level of the stakeholders. So what I would love is if you would just quickly drop in the chat what questions you think this sales professional should be asking. I'm going to take a sip. Okay. All right. Whether or not you put it in the chat, here's a couple things you would ask, right? What was the response to the quote that you shared, right? Which one of the case studies really resonated with whom? Who still needs a little bit more winning over? Who do we have to still have conversations with or give data or information to? And really, for me, what I'm asking myself, why isn't my buyer worried about this shit? Like, I'm over here worried about all these details because I need to be, because I have to make sure that everything is done the way that it should be. Well, my buyer is my partner in this, and they did a good job giving the content over to the stakeholders, but they didn't think through what that meant. They just gave me a generic answer of it went well. It's not fun. It's not enough. So all these things are what you're getting, right? When you are taking that step back and thinking about it. And here's the thing, this isn't one of those that you like kind of do, or you kind of do a step here or there. You got to follow all three again, because if you don't nail those first two steps, how you orient yourself around the situation that you're in, you don't have objectivity. You cannot figure out what to stress test. And even if you do, you're not going to get the information you need because you're looking at it through the lens of someone who is in the middle of it, which we all know there's all kinds of feelings that happen as you're going through the sales cycle. And those feelings, plus your brain wanting to just keep its life easy, those are working against you. So this is how you get your brain to do the right thing and make sure that you pull out what you need from this buyer and in this situation so that you're not going to get blindsided. Okay. All right. Okay. So what I think you might be thinking, it is not that easy, Anita. Like, how are we supposed to know? Great. Thank you for this example in this LinkedIn Live. Cool. Now we know what that situation required to be answered. Well, that's okay. here's what you're going to do. And this is a trick, by the way. So I was going to go to journalism school and I chose not to, long story. This is one of the ways that journalists think, right? In order to make sure that they capture everything that they need. And I do this for just about anything you can think of. If I've got a blank screen looking at me and I've got to get something done, I start with these. So when you need to just enter that reporter area, right? Like that reporter era. Be the person who's asking the questions. That's your role right then. Be the journalist. Ask yourself who, what, when, where, why, how. And you'll find that the questions will come naturally once you've got an idea of what it is, right? For the example that we had, okay, how do you say the who? Who all was in the room, right? Who all did you invite? Who didn't show up? What? What was their perception of the estimate, right? When did they feel they would be ready to sign? Where? Where do we need to make sure we communicate the process so that there is no confusion, right? Like what venue? Why? Okay, why are we going to move to the next step timeline? What makes us want to move? Or really, what justifies us moving forward? Right? And then how? Okay, good. How are we going to move forward? Once we clear that line of why, now we need to figure out the how. And that's kind of how just about everything works. And I will tell you, having raised one teenager already, she's 21, and the other one's 19, I can tell you this is one of those like mom hacks. I use this all the time to survive the teenage years. I kid you not, just try it. Try it. Doesn't matter who you're talking to. Give it a shot. This is actually a really good way um, to get the most out of a conversation even. I digress. All right. So your takeaway is this. You're going to make critical thinking a priority, right? And if you don't believe me, just go out there and ask your friendly neighborhood AI to tell you what is the importance of critical thinking in our new world of work, 26 and forward, right? What did the World Economic Forum think of analytical thinking, which is another kind of phrase for critical thinking? Because when you master critical thinking, you're going to be the person that buyer needs to navigate all the crazy that they're going through, their chaos. Like, why does this site say this? And why did it say this? And why is Gemini telling me this? And Claude is telling me this, right? They're not going to make a decision based on that information when it's not like jiving, right? So they need you to help them. And this type of thinking is what makes you valuable to them, right? Because because you're doing this, you're accounting for the holes and the gaps. So you're going to make sure that the decision they make is with confidence. More on that a little bit later next week. We're going to talk about advocacy. All right, what do I have next here? Oh, I kind of already said this. One point though, AI, AI will act like it has judgment. Do not pass go, do not listen, ignore, because Lord only knows what type of a hallucination that is. I don't doubt that if you train an AI for a very long time, what to do for judgment, you can give it some steps. It can be programmed, but it doesn't have that human intuition, right? It doesn't know that when they go into the reporter era, because the people are a certain way, because the context is this, I have to make sure I ask more of this type of question, not that. It's just doing what you're telling it to do. And in general, I have a big problem with outsourcing thinking. Okay, so do not rely on AI for this. It can't do it. And when it does try, it makes a mess of everything. All right, so your first step, again, get objective. The first two steps in the S3, which is what you're going to apply for critical thinking to your opportunities. First, set a distance, step out, right? And then swap lenses. My example was act like you're a sales leader. Well, very easily you could say act like you're the buyer. That's a good exercise to do too, right? And go through the rest of the process with that. Now, the thing is, when you pick that person, it's got to be somebody who can be objective, right? Like you can't go ask the engineer on the deal because they're in the middle of it as well. Okay. And this is the step where you're taking off those rose-colored glasses. So even though the person in the jar is feeling good about the opportunity, that gets put away, right? There's a lens of clarity that comes with this. Okay, then stress test every assumption. Like, don't take anything for granted. Don't take anything for table stakes. figure out that every assumption is valid, that there was nothing missed in the process of somebody making that assumption. Probe. You got to find the gotchas. Okay. And deals get derailed at the end for usually buyer stuff, right? And by buyer stuff, I mean like dysfunctional organizational dynamics. Those are the gotchas that are really hard to account for if you are just average day-to-day sales motion. Okay. Critical thinking gets you to those gotchas because they're the thing that's really hard. A combination of advocacy, which is next week's concept, and then critical thinking. You need to find them so you can account for them and they don't come bite you in the ass later. That's it. And if you get stuck, be the reporter. If you're thinking that you're not asking the right questions, just start with the who, what, when. You'll be amazed when you tell your brain to ask questions like this, what it's going to come up with. Okay, so do that. Get that information. Look, I can't say this enough. Critical thinking, it's very rare for it to be totally intuitive, right? But my other thing I'll tell you is it is possible to have too much critical thinking, because if you're spending that much time thinking and you're not moving forward, the critical thinking is not working for you, right? So be reasonable about it. This, by the way, is something that I fall prey to, like when I'm even putting together content for you. I will nitpick the hell out of every single word, which AIs don't love me for that either. But at some point, you got to stop, right? You got to lock it, which is one thing that the AIs, for my AIs, agree on. Like, I need to stop, it's fine. So everything in moderation. But this one, if it's absent or weak for you, step it up. You've got S3, right? In the bootcamp, we're going to go over like many other ways and many other reasons, right? Like the specific biases or the heuristics that your brain uses. But for our purposes today, I need to make sure that in this like 30 minutes that I get you what you need to go out there and use it. Okay. All right. I'm going to jump through this real quick. You can see this in the replay, or I'll get you the slides, but really I want to make sure that everyone understands like these lives are great, but what I want for you, and the reason I've been doing these is I want you to join my bootcamp in the fall, because that is where I will have the opportunity to give you everything that you need to know to be this person that is in B2B sales and is future ready. And not just future ready, the person that can adapt because things are changing every single minute, right? And the point of these lives is to help you kind of just open your eyes, right? Create awareness of the skills that you should have. Because I know not everyone is going to be able to do a boot camp. But the thing is, if you can, you should, because I promise you it'll be worth it. Because you'll have things that you can do for your real deals in flight. You'll be able to walk away with practical things that you can do right away. Like, look, I'm never going to give you a checklist or scripts, but I'm going to teach you how to think. And when I do that, I have full confidence that in the moment where that deal is won or lost, you're going to make the right call because you have the right mindset and the right heart set guiding you. Okay. All right. Okay. So here you go. The bootcamp starts in September. Joining it is how you're going to help yourself close the year out strong, because every single week you're going to have something that you can learn and apply. Right. And this is the first one I've ever done. I think I told you all that I've ever done that is direct to sales professionals. I usually work with sales leaders, but y'all needed this. It's the first one, so I reduced the fee, and I'll even do more if you tell me, like something you learned from one of the lives, we'll make it 1,000, right? And I'm only going to allow 15 people because I kind of practice what I preach. If I've got 100 people, then I'm not going to be very H to H, right? I'm not going to be able to make the relationship that I want. And I want to be able to have like a one-on-one with everybody who's going to join the boot camp. Okay, so next up, July 16th, next week, next Thursday, it is our last, topic. Okay, this is the advocacy and influence. Influence is like the result. It's the thing that we've been working toward with all this human-to-human sales acumen. We're working toward getting the ability to influence the outcome of the deal that you're working on, right? Influence that buyer in how they make their decision to make the best one. Okay, and then I'm going to take a little break. I'll be doing videos and things like that, and you can pay attention to my posts. But on August 6th, I want to do an Ask Me Anything, and I'll probably send y'all like a message before that. But that's where you're going to get a chance to ask me anything about any of the lives and the boot camp. Like, what can you expect? Anita, tell me a little bit more before I apply for it. Like this is an application situation. Y'all know I'm picky. Okay. If you've gotten the link to the assessment, you all should have gotten a direct message with a link to my Human-to-Human Sales Acumen assessment. It's pretty slick. I'm not going to lie. The kind of things that AI is really helpful with. I took a lot of time to build out the feedback that's in there. And so definitely check it out. It'll give you some kind of an idea of where you're at in your thinking today versus where you need to be with the full human-to-human sales acumen, right? With that being sharp. And then if you want the slides, just drop slides in the chat or DM me. And that's it. Thank you, right? So I will, as always, stay on for a couple of minutes. But next week, advocacy and influence, like it's the series wrap up. I'm excited, but I'm also a little sad that it took me till this one to get tech right. Anyway, that's a different problem. Thank you so much for joining. Have a good rest of your week. And like I said, I'll be here for a couple more minutes. Yeah. You can always also send me a message. You can put together a series of questions that you want to ask me at the Ask Me Anything. I'm here to make this make sense, and I'm here to make sure that you understand why this is so important. You know, like the thing that I was talking about in 2019, actually 18, because that's when I wrote the book. It's here now, right? And so I want to be able to help you. That back then it was like a love letter and a warning for salespeople. Now it's like a kick in the ass. Like you gotta get on top of these things. Um, because there are things that AI can't do. And it'll continue to make you stay relevant and be able to compete, not just against competition, but yes, like stiff competition, AI, machines, bots, and even the dreaded status quo. Right? So these are the skills that you need to do that. Okay.